Tell a man he is powerful, and he relaxes. Tell a man he is trapped, and he fights. Tell him he cannot have something, and he will burn the world to take it. This is not emotion. This is mechanics. In this video, you are going to learn the 13 Machiavellian laws of reverse psychology, the same psychological levers used by elite negotiators, strategists, and power players to influence outcomes without ever appearing to try. This is not about manipulation for harm. This is about understanding why people resist, why they chase, why they rebel, and how to design situations where they move exactly where you want while believing it was their decision. In this video, you're going to learn why offering choices is stronger than giving commands, why silence creates pressure, why withdrawing increases value, why agreeing can win arguments, and why the person who appears least invested usually holds the most power. But there is a warning. If you try to use these laws while emotionally reactive, while insecure, while desperate for approval, they will backfire. Because reverse psychology only works for the person who does not need the outcome. By the end of this video, you will not just understand influence, you will understand resistance. And before we move to the first law, you need to understand something critical. Most people fail at influence because they try to overpower resistance. They argue harder, they explain longer, they insist louder, and every time they do, they strengthen the other person's ego. The human mind is designed to defend autonomy. The moment someone feels directed, controlled, or cornered, their identity activates. Not logic, identity. Even if your idea is correct, even if your advice benefits them, if their autonomy feels threatened, they will reject it. Not because it is wrong, but because accepting it feels like losing control. This is the invisible battlefield, and this is where amateurs lose. Reverse psychology does not fight resistance, it redirects it. It allows the ego to feel powerful while subtly guiding direction. If you understand this mechanism, every interaction changes. Now, we move to the first law. Law 1. The illusion of choice. The ego does not crave control, it craves the feeling of control. There is a difference. When you command someone, their defenses rise. When you remove options, they resist, even if the option you removed was good for them. Instead of saying, "This is what we're doing," say, "We have two possible paths, both structured carefully, both acceptable, both quietly aligned with your objective." When someone believes they chose, they defend the choice. They protect it, they own it, and ownership eliminates resistance. Skilled strategists never eliminate autonomy. They curate it. They design the environment so that whichever option is selected, the outcome benefits them. The amateur forces compliance. The strategist designs preference. Law 2. The weight of silence. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it. They explain too much. They reveal too much. They negotiate against themselves. Silence is not absence, it is pressure. When you respond instantly, you signal urgency. When you over-explain, you signal insecurity. But when you pause, calm, composed, unmoved, the other person begins adjusting. The human brain hates uncertainty. If you don't react, they wonder why. If you don't clarify, they speculate. If you don't defend, they reevaluate. Silence shifts psychological weight. The one who talks more usually wants more. The one who speaks less often controls more. Strategic silence forces the other person to reveal their position. And the one who reveals loses leverage. Law 3. Identity framing. People will defend their identity long before they defend logic. If you challenge someone directly, they resist. But if you frame behavior as part of who they are, they align automatically. Instead of saying, "You should handle this responsibly," say, "You've always been someone who handles things responsibly." Now the ego steps in. To reject the action would mean rejecting the identity. Humans are wired for consistency. Once someone sees themselves in a certain light, they act to preserve it. You are not forcing behavior, You are reinforcing self-image, and self-image is stronger than instruction. The most powerful persuasion does not push action, it shapes identity. Law 4. The controlled withdrawal. Attention is currency. The more available you are, the less valuable you appear. Overexposure reduces perceived rarity. If someone feels certain of your presence, they stop investing effort. But when access becomes uncertain, without hostility, without drama, attention sharpens. This is not emotional ignoring. This is strategic spacing. You do not withdraw to punish. You withdraw to rebalance value. The human nervous system reacts strongly to potential loss. When access decreases, importance increases. And when importance increases, effort follows. The one who can comfortably step back controls the tempo. And tempo control is influence control. Law 5. Strategic agreement. When attacked, most people defend. Defense escalates and escalation hardens positions. Instead of arguing, you agree. Say, you might be right, then stop. No sarcasm, no passive aggression, just calm acknowledgement. Now their aggression has no target. They prepared for resistance. You removed it. Humans seek equilibrium. When you stop pushing, they begin reconsidering. Sometimes they will even argue in favor of the idea they were just criticizing. Because you disrupted the expected pattern. Power is not always dominance. Sometimes power is refusing to participate in conflict. Law 6. The ego challenge. The ego does not move toward comfort, it moves toward proof. If you tell someone they are capable, they feel good. If you suggest they might not be capable, they feel compelled to prove you wrong. Challenge activates pride. Instead of saying, I know you can handle this, say, it might be more difficult than it looks. Watch what happens internally. The ego rejects limitation, not because it loves growth, but because it hates doubt. Reverse psychology works strongest when pride is involved. But be careful. If the challenge feels insulting, defense activates. If the challenge feels subtle, determination activates. The difference is tone. Never attack identity. Lightly question capability. The ego will rush to protect itself. Law 7. The scarcity trigger. Abundance feels ordinary. Scarcity feels important. If something is constantly available, it loses urgency. If something feels limited, attention sharpens. This is not marketing theory. It is neurological response. When access decreases, the brain increases valuation. That is why exclusivity works. That is why limited seats sell. That is why emotional distance creates pursuit. But understand this clearly. Scarcity must be natural. Forced scarcity feels manipulative. Calm scarcity feels powerful. The person who does not overoffer does not need to convince, and what does not need to convince appears valuable. Law 8. The anxiety of total freedom. Too much freedom creates discomfort. When you tell someone, do whatever you want, you remove structure. And without structure, many people hesitate. Humans secretly prefer boundaries. Boundaries reduce uncertainty. If you give unlimited options, decision fatigue appears. If you give structured freedom, confidence increases. Reverse psychology sometimes works by giving full permission. When you remove pressure completely, the other person often leans forward voluntarily. Because now the decision feels safe. No push, no force, and paradoxically, more movement. Law 9. Emotional non-reactivity. This is the spine of everything. If you react emotionally, you lose leverage. Provocation is a test. Most people fail it. One comment can change their mood. One delay creates anxiety. One disagreement triggers defense. The person who can be emotionally provoked can be strategically controlled, but the person who remains composed becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability creates psychological distance. Distance creates respect. If you do not react, others recalibrate. They begin adjusting to you. Power is quiet. It does not chase clarity. It does not rush to explain. It does not beg to be understood. It simply remains stable. And stability forces adaptation. Law 10. The power of ambiguity. Certainty feels safe. Ambiguity feels intriguing. If everything about you is explained, you become predictable. Predictable people are manageable. But when your intentions are not fully exposed, others fill the gaps, and humans almost always imagine more than reality provides. Ambiguity creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attention. Attention creates influence. The less you reveal impulsively, the more space you create for projection, and projection often works in your favor. Law 11. The removal of access. When access disappears, value increases. If someone feels guaranteed access to you, they relax. When that access becomes uncertain, their brain shifts into alert mode. This is not about punishment. This is about boundaries. The moment you stop over-explaining, stop over-replying, stop over-proving, you become less predictable. And when predictability drops, attention rises. Humans are deeply uncomfortable with uncertainty, and uncertainty magnifies importance. Law 12. The redirection principle. When someone resists directly, do not confront. Redirect. If they say, "I don't think this will work." Instead of arguing, ask, "What part concerns you most?" Now they begin explaining, and in explaining, they soften. When people articulate concerns, they reduce emotional charge. You did not attack resistance, you guided it into conversation. Resistance loses power when examined calmly. Law 13. The detachment advantage. This is the final layer. Reverse psychology only works for the person who does not cling. If you need the outcome, your tone changes. If you fear losing, your posture shifts. If you depend emotionally, you reveal it unconsciously. True leverage comes from detachment, not apathy. Control. When you are willing to walk away, your words carry weight. When you are willing to lose, you stop negotiating from fear, and fear is what weakens influence. The most powerful person in the room is rarely the loudest. It is the one who is prepared to leave. Reverse psychology is not about tricking people. It is about understanding the ego, understanding resistance, understanding that humans do not like being pushed, but will often run toward what feels restricted. If you master these laws without mastering yourself, you become manipulative. If you master yourself first, you become strategic. And the difference between manipulation and strategy is discipline. The man who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. The man who does not cling cannot be leveraged. And the man who understands resistance no longer fights people. He designs environments, and in designed environments, outcomes rarely happen by accident.